All right, guys, here we go. Episode 11, Genesis 34 to 37. This is a deep lesson, but I was just telling Daniel, every time I read Genesis 34, all I can think is the worst band name ever, Dinah and the Shechemites. Thanks for joining us today on Bible in a Year. All right, guys, here we go. Episode 11, Genesis 34 to 37. Let's do what we did here over these last couple of days. I'm just going to run you down through the outline, and then Daniel and I are going to circle back around, and we'll talk about a few topics. So when you get into Genesis 34, it's kind of this weird passage that comes in. You know, Jacob's daughter is rarely, if ever, mentioned, but he has a daughter, and her name is Dinah. And she is sexually assaulted by the people of Shechem, which is named after the head of the town. Okay, it's the son of the king, so to speak. And I don't know how big that town was or whatnot, but she's sexually assaulted, and Simeon and Levi and the other brothers are livid, and Jacob kind of makes a treaty with them, and there's all this back and forth. Well, the treaty is if you'll circumcise all the males, then we'll give Dinah to the prince and let them be married. Well, Simeon and Levi on the front are on board, but in the back they're not. And after the whole town of men is circumcised, they go in and they kill every man in the town. And then they got to run for the hills because, what a mess. Genesis 34.
Talk about getting your name run through the ringer.
Oh, my goodness. That is, and that's going to come back around, too. When Jacob does the blessing, which is a weird blessing for his sons, this is why Simeon and Levi, their blessing ain't so blessed. And it's because of Genesis 34. Then you get into Genesis 35, all right? This is a huge passage. This is basically God saying what we were talking about in the last episode. Listen, your heart's changed, Jacob. I'm taking you home. And you're going back to Bethel. And we ain't going with no foreign gods.
Powerful.
And that is what Genesis 35 is all about. Tail end of it, Isaac dies. This is important too, because let's think about this. All right? Isaac, this is like decades after Isaac said, hey, boys, I'm dying. I'm about to lay out my blessing. And all that went down. This is decades and decades after that. So check what I'm talking about here, all right? You got to connect Genesis 35:28 with Genesis 25:26 and 26:34. Isaac is 60 years old at the time when Jacob and Esau are born. Isaac's 100 years old at the time of Jacob's blessing. This is before he gets out of Dodge and goes to live at Laban's house and starts his own family. 80 years. 80 years after that incident, Isaac dies. So when Isaac said he was dying, he was 100. When he actually dies, he's 180. So that's important for you guys to kind of recognize those timelines in the scriptures and see that. Then you get to Genesis 36. These are Esau's descendants. It talks about the Edomites, which we talked about in the last episode, okay? But I want you to look at Genesis 36:12. It talks about the Amalekites, all right? Those are descendants of Esau. And then note also in Genesis 36:35, the Midianites and the Moabites. Those folks are descendants from Ishmael, okay? And all of these folks end up being a thorn in the side of Israel. Finally, we get to Genesis 37, and it talks about the account of Jacob's family line, and it all of a sudden turns into a story about Joseph.
Yeah.
So that's where Joseph starts dreaming, and he's got his brothers bowing down. Then he has his dad and his mom bowing down, and the whole thing just it turns into a soap opera, and that's where the coat of many colors comes in, and Joseph is sold into slavery by his brothers. So that's the reading for the day for you guys. What stood out for you, brother?
I think so. I'm trying to keep the reader in mind of like first time going through the Bible. Let's just say that
Okay.
This does get a little tough here. It can get confusing here. You have the power of what we just went through in 31 to 33. and then it kind of slows down a little bit, and you're kind of, I love how you just piece that together. But then you're getting into this thing that turns into the story of Joseph.
It does.
As I kind of just take a snapshot of today's episode and today's chapters, like it's really important to engage in this episode in what you've just taught. All right, so like the timelines of age, right, and like there are some things that happen here, and like we can chat about that, but like for me, it's just, hey, like catch your breath here as a reader and understand. Like if you don't understand, hear what he just said, listen to it again, and kind of receive that and be like, like it will be so, and we know this, it will be so easy for us to say at certain times throughout the year. So we were just talking about this off the air, like Leviticus, like certain times where it's like, all right, well, I don't understand this, so I'm gonna stop. Don't stop.
No.
Don't stop. Like it's okay. It's okay. Like stay the course. Like stay consistent. Like I promise you, there's gonna be some things in Leviticus that are mentioned, even in parts of Exodus, where it's just like, all right, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah, right.
And that's okay. That's okay. Like there are things that I don't understand now that I will understand at a later time.
100%.
And I just want to encourage the reader with that, but when you look at this pattern, it makes me think, like when I say pattern, just these lineages, these generations of sons that are coming. There's just this humanity about them that is revealed in disobedience in certain ways. And so like my biggest thing is trying to understand what did Jacob feel in his heart when his sons disobeyed him, and how can that be applied to me as a parent myself when I've instructed my kids to do something and they've disobeyed me? I know this is a far different extreme, but still, I think there's a moment in there for me to say, hey, what is it to look like Christ in this moment, to reflect the heart in the midst of disobedience when there's been command?
That is a perfect segue into probably, it's not the biggest point, but it could be the biggest point. Guys, look, if you would, Genesis 35, 1 through 5. Think about what Pastor Daniel just said and look at Genesis 35, 1 through 5.
Yeah.
Then God said to Jacob, go up to Bethel and settle there and build an altar there to God who appeared to you when you were fleeing from your brother Esau. So Jacob said to his household and to all who were with him. Now, this is post-wrestling match.
Yep.
He's had his come to Jesus meeting with Jesus.
Yeah.
Literally, all right? So Jacob said to his household and all who were with him, get rid of the foreign gods. It's what you just said.
Yeah.
If you're going to be my kid and you're going to go with me, we ain't having this.
That's right.
You get rid of your foreign gods that you have with you, and you purify yourselves, and you change your clothes. If you're going to bear the name of this household,
yeah,
you're going to bear the name right.
Yeah.
Then, come, let us go up to Bethel, where I will build an altar to God, who answered me in the day of my distress, and who's been with me wherever I've gone. Jacob says, that's it. I'm not turning back no more. I'm laying down the gauntlet, and this is the way it's going to be. And if you jokers are coming with me, you're going to step the right way.
Yeah.
And watch what they do. I love the cause and effect here between 4 and 5. So they gave Jacob all the foreign gods they had and the rings in their ears, and Jacob buried them under the oak at Shechem. You want to contrast something in the scripture? Rachel sitting on top of those gods, burying them underneath her.
That's it.
And not coming clean.
That's right.
Versus bringing everything out and saying, we're burying this stuff. We're having a funeral for it. We ain't coming back here again.
Yeah.
We are moving on. And when they finally decide to go with God, watch this. Verse 5. Then they set out, and the terror of God fell on the towns all around them so that no one pursued them. Buddy, I'm going to tell you right now, and people need to see this here.
Yeah.
And they need to see it in their own lives.
Yes.
If you're holding back, and look, we all sin and fall short of the glory of God. There's always going to be stuff, wood, hay, and stubble that needs to be burned out of our life. John 15, we're always going to need to be pruned. But if you're going with God, you better bring it to him and say,
Yeah.
I'm not going back to the old way of living anymore.
That's right.
It's Galatians 5:1. It is for freedom that you've been set free. Don't you dare go back and put on a yoke of bondage to slavery again. I love how Jacob lays it down for his family.
Yeah, and it's Galatians 2:20. It's no longer I that live, but Christ that live. Like
Amen.
I've died to the life that I now live. I live for the glory of God. I've died to something to live for something. And like, this is huge. Like, there's a lot of young families in our church. And if you're working through this, like, it may be hard for you to deal with something you're seeing in your child if you've not yet dealt with it. Like, that's important, you know? And I think that's like what we're seeing here is that Jacob finally has this wrestling match. He doesn't allow it to pow up. He's dealt with it. And yes, his sons are going to do some things that they shouldn't do, but he's at a place where he's not abandoning ship here. He's in it for the long haul.
No, he's captaining the ship for the first time in his life.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, he finally says, look, if you're getting on my ship, you're going to get on like this.
Yep.
This is the ticket to board.
This is the way we're going.
Oh, my gosh.
And that's huge. Like, I'm not going to, and I'm sure this was the same in your home with your kids. You're not going to be like everybody else.
That's exactly right.
I love you.
Ask Tanner over there.
Yeah, I love you. As he shakes his head. I love you, but we're not like everybody else. And that is not a statement of pride. That is a statement of surrender. We live differently. I'm about to get fired up. So anyway.
It's funny. There's that story of that guy that fought in Alexander the Great's army, and his name was Alexander, and he deserted, okay? Well, when they arrested him, they brought him before Alexander, and Alexander the Great said to Alexander the great general, the great emperor, said to Alexander, the soldier who deserted, this is what he said to him: change your attitude or change your name. If you're going to walk under the name of the one true and living God, you better walk under the name, man.
That's
and
right.
if not, go walk in some other name, because that's not the name we're walking in, you know. Hey, let me do a couple of things here because we're sitting at the 12-minute mark, okay? So, important.
Yeah.
12th child is born in their reading today. Rachel has Benjamin, and she dies in childbirth. I'm going to bring this point out when Jacob dies, but she is buried in Bethlehem. She's not buried in the cave that he bought from Ephron the Hittite. Rachel's the one that's loved, but she's not buried in the family cave. We'll come back to that later. Then also Reuben, who is the oldest of the sons, he sleeps with one of his dad's handmaids, Bilhah, who is the mother of some of his brothers.
Yeah.
And Reuben, he's out
Yep.
as the firstborn son. And then you get down to Genesis 37 to Joseph. My goodness.
Yeah.
You begin to see that Joseph is the favored son,
Yep.
which, again, we talk about, even though Jacob is going with God, he's still got his flaws.
That's right.
And it's not right. And he's favoring Joseph inappropriately.
Right.
Because Joseph's ultimately not the messianic line.
Right.
But we'll see here in farther down the road episodes why Joseph is favored, even though Jacob doesn't realize it, okay? But Joseph is also gifted by God to interpret dreams. And he's kind of arrogant as a kid,
Right.
saying to his brothers, hey, you're all going to bow down to me, and then says to his dad and his mom, not only are they going to bow down, but you're going to bow down too, after he has these dreams. And Jacob rebukes his boy, but it says also what Mary said about Jesus. Jacob pondered these things in his heart in terms of his son.
Yep.
So, you know,
His
any closing thoughts as we finish this up?
Nah, I mean, just on that final story, his brothers are finally like, nah, you're out. You know what I mean? Like, you're gone.
Oh,
So,
yeah. They get him. And I mean, I don't have to tell you the story. You guys know it. But he's sold into slavery by his brothers.
Yeah.
And isn't it interesting? Sold into the Ishmaelites, the Midianite slave traders. He's sold to his own family line. Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac.
Right.
These are Ishmaelites.
Yeah.
Who he's sold into slavery to, and they take him down to Egypt to Potiphar's house. And that takes you to the end of episode 11, Genesis 34 to 37. We are straight Joseph from here on out.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have an iTunes account or a Spotify account, but I challenge you to look it up. Dinah and the Shechemites. Have a great day, guys. God bless you.